So, welcome to this fireside chat. It's going to be all about AppSheet, and I'm really honored today to have the CEO of AppSheet in this call, who is Praveen. Praveen, welcome.
Thanks, Bart. Good to be here.
So, Praveen is the CEO of AppSheet, and AppSheet has been a pretty interesting tool for us for Nextnovate over the last couple of years. We've seen it evolving from starting. Has always been a no-code app. What does no code mean, Praveen? Could you maybe tell us something about it?
Yeah, at a very, very high level. What AppSheet's trying to do is allow a business user to build mobile applications, or actually a variety of applications, to transform a business and to automate things within a business without writing a single line of procedural code. In other words, you do not need a developer in order to build an app. That's the basic idea.
Yeah, and that may sound like magic, but to me, we've started to try it out a few years ago, and we really see some interesting things, especially with our customers that seems to follow like organizational changes or lean projects. And then, a lean project often start with like a vision or an idea that comes out of a group, and then the process is new, but how to support that process from a let's say software perspective. And what we often see is that the knowledge of that new process is often in the head of the business users, but not yet in the IT people's heads. And that's where AppSheet comes in, because what we've seen, for example, with McKinsey, and that's a pretty big consulting firm, they use this app, specifically this app together with Nextnovate, to enable their users to, actually visualize and create what they have thought of in their processes. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what AppSheet can do in these kind of things, these kind of situations?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of slides maybe we could go through, but we can sort of try and illustrate this at a really high level. And this is just a useful analogy to keep in mind. We're trying to build an app platform that is quote unquote self-driving. It's just like in a car, a self-driving car doesn't need a driver. In an AppSheet app platform, you do not need a software engineer or developer. Any business user can build an app. That's the big picture. Just as you were talking about, the traditional model of building an app would involve taking an idea, which is almost always starts from a business user. Some spec had to be written. A development team had to be hired or found, which is pretty expensive. They take a lot of time to write code. It produces an app. And then that may or may not be what you want. And so you have to iterate through that. That's why any application development is so expensive, so slow, and has a high failure rate, right? That's a traditional problem. But what we're trying to do with AppSheet and in general with a no-code platform is bypass all those steps. So you go from the idea and you have an intelligent platform that can try to understand this idea, described at a really high level by the person who's got the idea. And an app gets automatically created. Then you can iterate on that really fast. So sort of the heart of this is that because you're just describing this idea at a higher level, many, many more people can do it. It is way more agile. It's actually 100 times more agile because people can iterate in the app many times in a day. And the feature set also gets to be really rich. These apps are rich and they map directly to the idea that people have.
Yeah, but that sounds like a salesperson, Praveen. I mean, what does it mean? I mean, what kind of features are there in this app? What does it, I mean, I cannot, yes. I mean, if I look at this picture, it sounds like it's not
magic.
Possible. Yeah, it does sound like magic, but
yes.
I mean, I know it's not. So could you tell some of the typical things that are pretty cool?
Yes, and in fact, this is where, a demo would be actually sensible. And I'm sure along with this video, we can put together a demo of some of this. But at the core essence is that we've determined, the main insight is that there's a lot of the intent of what a person wants to build in the data they already have. It's actually why the product is called AppSheet, because originally when it started 4 years ago, the idea was point us at a spreadsheet that has your data. It could be in a Google Sheet, it could be Excel in the cloud. And in that data, there's enough information that we can build an app automatically out of that data and against that data. Here's a simple example. If you had a spreadsheet of your customers and some products and orders that sell products to customers, and a lot of businesses have this kind of data, and mobile app can be built automatically against that because there's enough information in that data and the data structure itself to be able to create an app that can both show orders from customers and also capture new orders. That's just one of really hundreds of thousands of possible apps that businesses build on AppSheet today.
But you already mentioned that it started off based on a sheet, on a Google Sheet, for example. Is that still the basis for an app? I mean, it sounds a bit unstable or not really business or enterprise proof.
Well, yeah, as we all know, every business users often will export data into spreadsheets, but then the more enterprise data lives in a database or in some kind of SaaS application. An AppSheet at this point will connect to a variety of different data sources, about 15 of them, any kind of relational database, on-premise or in the cloud. It connects to Salesforce, to Airtable, to Smartsheet, and of course, it also connects to spreadsheets, because wherever the data is actually doesn't matter. The heart of what an AppSheet app does is understand how to craft logic out of that data and build an app out of it. And the apps, by the way, will run on any mobile device, a tablet or a phone, Android or iOS. They run also in a web browser, and importantly, they run offline. So the kind of scenarios that come out of this are not just simply reflecting the data that's in your database or spreadsheet, but inspecting data. For example, we're in the Netherlands. I'm actually sitting right now in one of the sort of a very fast-growing company called the Student Hotel. And they use AppSheet apps to inspect the rooms, to actually deliver parcels to their guests. And when they inspect the rooms, if there's any damage, a photo gets taken. When things are delivered, signatures get captured. All of this happens in mobile apps built in AppSheet, but then all the data is brought back to cloud storage wherever they have their data in Salesforce or in Smartsheet or in Google Drive or in a database.
So what you're saying is you can also connect to like a real database, or you can connect to Google Drive to store, for example, those photos that you take from a room. That's yeah.
That's right. The most important thing is to actually mobile enable the data that you have. The data you have for your business is already wherever it is. You don't need to move it. You don't need to copy it into AppSheet. It lives where it lives. Spreadsheet, database, Salesforce, doesn't matter. But you're mobile enabling it so that your workforce can use it effectively through a mobile app or one or more mobile apps.
So AppSheet has been on the radar of Nextnovate for quite a few years, and I was actually happily surprised about Gartner's recognition for the work you guys are doing. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that and what the whole point is behind it?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for bringing that up. And you called me a salesperson.
I was just happily amazed by this. I mean, if you like an app, not all the apps that we like have been recognized by Gartner. So this is a pretty cool thing, I think.
Right. Actually, Gartner, there's a couple of big analysts in the US, Gartner and Forrester, and it's really Forrester that has sort of recognized us in this space. Gartner doesn't yet have a quadrant around what we do. So that's hopefully coming out in 2019. What you're seeing here is Forrester's analysis of both low code and no code mobile app platforms. And just briefly, low code just means you write a little bit or less programmatic code than you would otherwise. But no code is truly different because you don't need to be a programmer at all. But across both categories of platforms that build mobile apps, this is their analysis. And the two axes, by the way, are this axis talks about strategy, and that axis talks about how strong the platform is. And they evaluated this around May of 2018, and they put us in the leader wave, along with Microsoft and a couple of other folks. Really interestingly, they put us in the strongest position in strategy. And if I can, maybe, Bart, can I sort of spend a minute on why that is?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's sort of in some sense, the first reason anybody builds mobile apps is because they want to eliminate pen and paper, drive some productivity for your workforce. So rich apps can be built with AppSheet this way. So that's good. What happens is after that, an organization discovers that by doing this, all the data is collected in a central place. So they want to now start getting some analytics over it. As an example, I mentioned the Student Hotel. They're collecting information about maintenance. It all comes into a central place, and then they can start to see where are the problems. The third step beyond just, analytics often is some kind of dashboard with charts on it. The third step is actually getting AI and machine learning over this data. And that's an area we've now started to invest in, where automatically, if you build your app in AppSheet, you can automatically get intelligence in AI and machine learning out of this data without you having to write any code or being a data scientist or doing any training of models. Just falls out automatically out of it, which is why it's really exciting. And there's a lot of opportunity for far richer value coming out of building apps in AppSheet.
Well, as well, this is that, Google is all about AI and machine learning nowadays, and I honestly didn't think that these apps like AppSheet would also be able to do that properly. However, we Praveen and I obviously were in contact before this call, and he showed me a bit about what AppSheet with AI can do, and I was truly amazed. So this is definitely a cliffhanger for the demo, which will be in another video that we're going to post. A little bit more about
one thing to just jump in on that. Many big companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, are all offering platforms for developers to go build AI solutions. And they're actually pretty complicated. You have to do a lot of work to have a good AI solution that can, for example, predict if a customer is going to churn, or to automatically categorize feedback, or whatever it is, right, that you're trying to do, or cluster your data. We're making this accessible to the non-developer, business user, automatically. So underneath, we will use some of the infrastructure that these big players have, but the person building this never needs to worry about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and we often, I mean, the whole low code concept has been out there for quite a while. Some customers, for example, use Mendix. Some use others. What would you say to them? Like, why is AppSheet for them interesting?
Yeah, look, Mendix is a good company. There's there's one called Outsystems, and also a European company. And their primary, the value they bring to the table is, if you go to an IT department, traditionally it would cost, I don't know, $250,000 to build an app. It would take 12 months to do. And what they've done is they've simplified some of this app building process with some common modules to say, you can do this 4 times faster. You can do it 5 times faster. You still need developers to do it, but you can do it 4 or 5 times faster. AppSheet's value proposition is different. We actually think you can do things 100 times faster, but very importantly, there's a lot more people who can build applications. It doesn't need to be only the IT department. It could be any line of business. It could be any manager who's got any problem to solve. Now, when I say this, it could scare an IT department, because it could be like all kinds of applications being built with sprawl. But we also provide a lot of enterprise infrastructure that allows central governance of this, while enabling a large number of people in the organization to solve their own problems. Just sort of very briefly, there's the design time of the apps, there's a runtime to actually run the applications. The entire life cycle of the apps can be managed, and it can be governed centrally. And it isn't just small companies doing this. For what it's worth, we have a large companies, small companies building apps with AppSheet, and they always, I won't spend too much time on this, but they always go left to right in this slide. They start with some tactical problem they're trying to solve, one problem. And they're able to whip up a solution, and it works well for them. And then they go to team-wide. Let's start solving all of our problems. And then they move eventually to organization-wide, where AppSheet becomes a standard across the organization. Yeah. So that sort of flow, we never start all the way to the right. You always start left and move to the right.
Yeah, but that's you start with iterations, right? It starts with, I think, intrinsic motivation of a person that sees something like, okay, I can solve this. And then eventually you get to a point where it becomes business critical. And now the interesting part is that indeed AppSheet is able to facilitate the whole journey. Normally an app starts with like something people will start building themselves, but then the app is mature enough to support the whole process. And AppSheet seems to be that product that it can.
Right. I really want to iterate, whether it was OutSystems or Mendix or a low-code solution, all we're really doing is changing the middle step of this process. You're still going to have to write an idea, write a spec for something, get budget for it, identify a development team to do this. And what they're doing is they're shortening the time between that development team creating the app that can be tested and iterated. Whereas what we have found in practice is that when an organization has an idea, maybe out of 4 or 5 ideas, there's only one that really takes off. right?
Yeah.
And that's what is high failure rate in applications typically. You want to be able to experiment and try with these different things without writing a single line of code. And that's why it's really important to have a real, true, like you mentioned, lean, really agile, sort of instant ability to translate from the ideas into something working so you can figure out whether or not it's what you want.
Well, Praveen, this is enough sales talk for now for us. So let's move over to the demo part, which will be in another video. Thank you for watching. If you want to have any information, let us know, and we'll definitely make sure to get the most out of AppSheet together with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Appreciate the opportunity, and thanks to all of you.